Hello, everyone. Oh, hi. Thank you for arriving. Whatever mode of transport you used, I don't know. So you might be wondering why I was playing the ET theme tune. Did anyone notice that? Yeah. Just want to check that everyone noticed that. Yeah. Well, by the end of tonight's presentation, you might get to find out that, as far as I'm concerned anyway, that the idea that extraterrestrials are like in the movie Aliens, you know, dribbling goo and trying to eat everyone, or Mars Attacks, or that they're trying to pinch our eggs and sperm and take over our planet because, hey, our women are so hot, or whatever. All of this is really tribal craziness. I believe that the truth is closer to the actual film E.T. by Steven Spielberg. And you might get to understand why that is during tonight's presentation. So yeah. Let me see, how many of you have actually seen a UFO? Okay. 3, 4, 5. 5 people. Any more takers? There's some people in here that don't want to admit to it. Hands up, please. Yeah. So we have 5 people that feel they've seen something they can't explain. Okay. Well, my aim in doing this presentation, and originally I've had a kind of an on-off relationship with the UFO phenomenon ever since I was a little boy. So when I was 6 years old, so that would be about 1985, I found myself on a school playing field, sat on the grass beneath an oak tree. And I just sat there, and there was a sparkly object in the distance, something, the light reflecting off something, and I looked at that. And I started to go into some kind of trance or meditative state. And this started to happen more and more. When it happened at school, I would find that the dinner bell was going, and it was like, rushing off to the classroom. Or I was, admittedly, when I was young, I was quite spaced out. And yeah, I was all over the place. And I started to meditate sometimes for up to 2 hours at a time. And I literally would just sit there and stare at an object. Again, like I said, it would be something sparkly, or I just find, like, say, that nail there, and I would focus upon it. And what I found was that I developed a kind of a tunnel vision. And I was able to focus upon the object for many, many minutes, sometimes very long periods of time, without blinking. And that was quite important, without blinking. And then I found if you close your eyes slowly and remember the object or the point that you were focused upon, that it's like the space imagined between this point, which becomes, I suppose, in the mind, an imagined point, right? Oh, that's real. That point there, that now on the floor, that's a real point. This is an imagined point now that I close my eyes. And what would happen was the two would somehow dissolve and become one. And this sense of a barrier between what I perceive as my self as a separate observer, observing this point, they would just melt. And it was kind of like, the way to describe it was, I also used to roll my eyes upwards and look just here. And there was a sensation of pressure, like someone had something in the middle of my brain and was squeezing it, really, really, lots of pressure. Felt like a little sphere. And it would get squeezed so much, it would become super tiny, and then something would happen at a certain point in the meditation that it would pop. And again, this experience of dissolving would happen. The sense of me would dissolve. It was like I would go from looking out or looking at to being one with what I'm looking at, or outside and inside became one. Well, many, many years later, I did do a talk around about 2012 for Truth Juice. Obviously, at that time, everyone thought the world was going to end. So did I. Sometimes. And then I got over it. What the heck, anyway? It's going to happen one day. We're all going to die one day. So, and I did this presentation about 2012. Now, a lot of people are now saying 2012 never happened. The world didn't end. We said it wouldn't end. All those crazy crackpots said the world was going to end. Nutcases. Case solved. Well, if anyone listened to what I was saying, I never at any point said the world was going to end. I said the world was going to go through a transformational period. And I believe that that is still ongoing. However, it is a transitional period. You can look into things like the Kali Yuga cycles and so on, and we're actually really, we're not in the golden age, we're transitioning, and we're in a period where we can see more and more the kind of what we perceive as the darkness and the light and these different forces. It's becoming more obvious to us, becoming more clear. It's like the scales are being dropped from our eyes and we're seeing things in a different way. And this is freaking a lot of people out, right? However, I feel that in some ways there's more transparency. And what it does, it brings you to a point where you kind of have to make a choice. You know, am I going to be carried away by a wave of fear and desperation? And am I going to be drawn into, you know, am I going to be pulled in? Or am I going to go towards the dark? Or am I going to go towards the light? Or something more in between? And something beyond that? Well, anyway, when I gave this presentation, a penny dropped. And it was during all the meditations that I did as a child. They all revolved around staring at a point. Yeah? And then opening and closing the eyes. And I would do this multiple times. It's kind of like a cyclical thing. So you would do about, you know, you stare at a point, close your eyes, open your eyes, do not blink for about as long as you can do. I might go up to 10 or 15 minutes, some ridiculous lengths of time sometimes, and then close the eyes. It's important not to blink. The magic doesn't happen if you blink. In meditation, you develop an ability to control, like the body. You can switch the body off. When you're able to switch the body off, then of course you can experience yourself beyond the body. As long as you're identified with your body and you're itching and you're like, oh, I'm meditating, I'm trying to meditate, oh, I'm having a thought, you're go away, like a little fly. As long as you're there with your fly squatter, you never get it. So one of the things I found as a child was I could get to a point where my whole body would feel like it didn't exist. It would just become numb, and that's all part of this practice. Well, in 2012, by coincidence, leading up to the talk that I gave, there was a series of synchronistic events. This is typical of my reality, and I imagine typical of many of your realities. A series of synchronistic events. One of them was coming across a book in a second-hand bookshop. And it was called The Overself. I'm trying to remember the guys. I'm terrible with names and details, by the way. I really apologize for this. I'm very, very right brain. I get the big picture, but when it comes down to the details, I often lose them. But anyway, I remember the title of the book. It was The Overself. And it was a doctor that went off to India. And this is, you know, when a lot of people started to go over to India. And he went over there and he studied with Indian monks, yogis. And he said in this book that he mentioned a technique of meditation. And he said, he who is able to focus upon this point without blinking can transcend time and space. And suddenly a penny drops, like, oh gosh, what I was practicing at 6 years old was a meditation technique they do over in India. It's called Trikata. And so that happened then. And I knew that there was a connection between that and the UFO phenomenon. If anyone went to my talk on 2012, back in 2012, surprise, surprise, I talked a lot about how everything is connected. I talked about the pineal gland, because this sense of pressure here, like, that actually is, I don't know if anyone's heard of a guy called David Wilcock. Yeah. You can look at a talk by him, the 2012 talk presentation that he did, which was like #1 on YouTube. If you watch that, it will explain a lot of the things that I'm talking about tonight. Because the Christ said in the big book, the Bible, that to see with a single eye, let thine eye be single, and thy whole body shall be full of light. And there's another passage of the Bible, again, like I said, I'm terrible on details. I can quote parts of the Bible in the Bhagavad Gita or whatever, I can't remember where they are. But anyway, there's another part where it says, and they all gathered in darkness, and they saw the light. What does this mean? Of course, a lot of people read the Bible and read other things and just go, well, it means this. Let thine eye be single, mean be single-pointed, be focused on Christ or God, or be focused on this religious thing. Well, I take a more, metaphysical interpretation of that, and I believe what he meant was to use this, the single eye. There is a single eye here. They call the pineal gland, or the third eye. In esoterics, it's the third eye. And a word I like to use for this is omnivision. This is the eye of omnipresence, or omnivision. I used to refer to it as the 360 eyeball, because it can see 360 degrees. It's where the term having eyes in the back of your head comes from. And when I was a little boy, I was at school, and I used to hate sitting at the back of sitting at the front of the classroom, because I'd feel like everyone was staring at me. So I always had to sit at the back. But anyway, the other thing about the Christ said in the Bible was that they were gathered in darkness. Again, when I meditated as a child, I found that my most spectacular meditations were in pitch black. And we can make all sorts of connections here with the biology of the pineal gland and so on. So the pineal gland, the physical eye in the brain, it's a vestigial eye. You still find it on the back of some lizards, little eyes on the back of their head. And so ours is like about the size of a grain of rice, okay? And it has light receptors, little crystals, which some have connected to an hallucinogenic compound called dimethyltryptamine, DMT. And there's a theory I came across by David Wilcock that these little light receptors, it could, in a sense, be used a bit like a TV set. That these things do actually light up. I forgot the name of the guy, but he was crushing, I think it was DMT, and he found light sort of fly out of it. Well, the same thing is happening in here. Apparently there are these crystals in the pineal gland. So, the pineal gland is also connected to our sleep cycles. So obviously when it gets dark, we start to release more melatonin, we start to get tired, and we go into sleep where we dream and rest. Yeah? And so when they gathered in darkness, well, I believe it's because if you sit in darkness and meditate, or whatever you're doing in darkness, pray or just sit there staring at the wall, what happens is that it obviously changes your state of consciousness. You go into a relaxed place, and these particles can become activated. So this is what I was doing as a little boy. It was my main hobby. I was basically like, yeah, I was like a guinea pig of my own self. I was kind of like my own little experiment, and I was seeing what goes on inside here. You know, psychology came from introspection originally. It was called introspection, and that's what psychology was. They would study themselves. Then psychology became behaviorism, and they study from the outside, external, exterior behavior of a person walking around. If I glue a 2-pence piece down on the ground, will they, you know, how many people and how long will they try and pick that off the ground? But if I put a pound down there, they'll be there, come back with drills and stuff and try and get the pound up. I know that because we used to do that in psychology. We did do that experiment. So I was studying myself, and I learned a lot of things. But I believe that what I learned is also universal. They're universal principles. And when I had this experience of staring at a point and then this dissolving, I became one with the whole universe. And I want that experience to happen again. And of course, then the whole meditation, spiritual journey begins. Like I said, there's this connection with the extraterrestrials. And this is what happened. Another penny dropped. That I'd actually experience, when I would have these experiences, that a tunnel would form. Literally what looked like a tunnel. And you know the phrase I used earlier, tunnel vision, right? It's like a metaphor. I believe it's also a metaphor for something that is metaphysical or interdimensional. That if I focus upon that physical point, right, I close my eyes and I have the kind of subjective point. I remember it. And if I can focus on it just as much as I did with my eyes open, my eyes closed, that's where the magic happens. So what I found was this. I had an out-of-body experience. I'd have a lot of those as well. And one of my out-of-body experiences, a few had this kind of theme running through them. There was one occasion where I wake up in bed. Is that the right term, wake up? I wake out my own body in bed. There's me on the bed. And I see myself laying there, and I see these lines coming out of my body. They look like spider threads, right? And I saw two side by side coming out of me. And I thought, well, what are those? And I was looking at them, and I thought, okay. Well, as I know, if you focus your consciousness on something, you become more connected with that. If I focus upon you, then there's more connection between us, right? It's kind of obvious. But when you think of something that is not physically present like this, or you can still make a connection. It's what we call non-local mind. Well, these cords, threads, I call them spider threads. I don't know why, that sounds really cool. Spider threads, they were like, that's what they look like, spider threads. Therefore, spider threads. Trademarked. Not that I need to trademark it, it was obvious. So anyway, there's these spider threads, and I thought, well, I'll put my consciousness, I direct my consciousness, if I want to know what that is, then focus upon it. So I did. I looked at it, focused, and imagined I could put myself inside the spider thread. And I did. I went into the spider thread, and it was just like in all those movies. And this is where you just think, oh, he's been watching too much TV again. Contact, Avatar, I don't know anymore, but there's loads. Go on and on, there's loads of films, and they all have the same theme. Basically, like I was sucked into this tunnel, and I was inside of it, and it was round, and it started to speed up. And it was light, and it was and it got faster and faster, and I just shot through this tunnel. And I ended up somewhere else. I ended up in what I came to understand was the United States of America. We're not going out that far yet, but anyway, in the US. And I was connecting with a particular individual, and this happened a lot. First time, I won't go into too much because you wouldn't believe any of this, but anyway. Basically, I was connecting with a particular individual. Well, I will go into this. Because the first time it happened, I was in deep meditation, and I was doing the same practice I described. And at the time, I found this picture outside. It was a square picture, and it had a flower on it with a blue background. And I got the picture, and I put it up on the side, and I'd sit there, and I'd just look from a distance at the flower at the center, and I'd not blink, and then close my eyes and just keep going through the process. And at some point, something happened. The tunnel vision occurred, but then something happened above me, like a light was pouring down. I looked up, and it was like someone was there. Yeah. And I floated upwards as if there was this tube going up into the ceiling, and off I went. Well, of course, I thought that was my imagination. But next day, I end up in a conversation with someone from the United States of America that looks exactly the same as the person that I saw coming through the ceiling. Yeah, we haven't got to the extraterrestrials yet. Gosh. What's all this got to do with ET? But what started to happen was...
Sorry, so the same guy,
go on.
The same guy in America is also...
The first time, yeah, I was in meditation, and he literally just appeared like he was coming through the ceiling. Right. And it was this tube of light, and I went up through this tube of light, and I went somewhere else with him. Yeah. Further experiences, like I said, one, there was these tubes coming out of my body, or what I thought was my body, laying on the bed, and I went into the tube, and I went through it. And what happened was, it was like, I had this image, like at the same time, in my subconscious of, like, say, telegraph poles, like you're making a telephone call. Imagine I was definitely kind of, I felt there was a subjectivity, like I was making like a metaphorical comparison, saying, oh wow, I'm traveling down the phone lines, or like the internet, you know, when broadband came out and BT had an advert. I don't know if anyone saw that. And do you see the advert for it, for BT? And it was literally like looking into a tunnel of light. It was the same imagery that was in all these sci-fi movies. Well, I went through the tube and I ended up in the States. Various things that I saw, I wrote them into my diary. Next day I described it to him and he said, yeah, that's all true. Basically what I described to him, he could confirm. And this went on, and it totally, of course, blew my mind. Not that it should. It should be kind of, or at least I should, maybe should get more used to it by now. And this went on for a while. And I realized that what these tubes are, this is my theory anyway, these are lines of least resistance. And so what it is, you can make a connection with something, or I'm connected by looking at that, but if I make a connection with, say, a concept or something, or a place, like, oh, America or the Egyptian pyramids, I might have not been there, but there is this kind of connection in my psyche, of the pyramids. Now, from my experience, there is an astral realm, and there is such a thing as a non-local mind. Non-local mind, sorry, I'll explain what these are. Non-local mind just means that everything is connected, and we can experience being connected. Astral realm is like another dimension of consciousness. So we have the physical body, we have subtle body, which includes astral body, and then we have physical, subtle, and for some reason I've forgotten. Non-dual? I might have skipped one. Oh, yeah, spirit, then non-dual. So that's the basic understanding of bodies, that we have more than one body. And so past the physical body, we have this astral form, and this is like another dimension where this astral form can move through time and space in a different way than here. Kind of like the fourth dimension or something. I'm not a physicist or anything like that, so I can't go into any like specifics like that, but I can only describe my experiences. So anyway, this kind of contact was happening between me and him. We lost contact many, many years later, and the bizarre thing is, I asked him why. He did have a car accident, which I dreamt about. It was really freaky, because it was like I was in the car, and there was this thing where I kind of got stuck or something, like fell into the bottom of the car like this, and felt really kind of bleh, like kind of sick and stuff. Felt like I was drunk or something. Anyway, it turns out that he had this car accident. This was in the period of time where he wasn't in contact with me, like by email. Mate, there's the astral contact, but there's also email contact. So it turns out he had a car accident, and but then he lost contact with me again, and I said, why did you lose contact with me this time? Like, well, you had another car accident? When we got back in touch by email the second time round, he said that, he used to say to me, he said, one day, brother, he used to always call me brother, He said, we'll sit underneath the stars, and we'll meet them together. And on this later occasion, he basically said that they turned up. He said, I just freaked out. They just turned up like at home, the ETs. And he said, I just couldn't take it anymore. Anyway, he's happily married now and seems very happy. So we can have these experiences of connection with other people and other beings, even without picking up the phone or an email. There are many ways to connect. It's like all the technology we've got now, do we really think that we surpass nature? Like, don't you think that nature already figured out internet and mobile phones and all this kind of rubbish yonks ago? Exactly. And I believe, this is pretty far out, that we're actually a telepathic culture, but we don't realize it yet. We've actually got, what we've done is we've exteriorized consciousness. So we're still stuck in a materialistic culture which says everything's on the exterior. So rather than experiencing telepathy, we end up with all these weird gadgets, and we're like, it's like, yeah, man. Boom! So much power in this. And I think we've basically been dumbed down, and we've had a bit of a bad deal. So anyway, let's get on with talking about ETs, because, like I said, lots of experience with ETs. And I was doing this meditation practice. There's all these connections with non-local mind and it's bizarre stuff. Oh, and the tubes, the paths of least resistance. And what I determined these were, without being a physicist or understanding any of the mechanics or anything, these were the equivalent of what we might call stargates. Or, better than that actually is wormholes. Right? You've heard that term? Wormholes? Now, one of the questions around ET is, well, okay, well, if you look back to like yonks ago, like, I can't remember exactly when it was it the 70s? The Drake equation. And they had all the scientists come together and do all this like research and say, you know what, based on the latest theory, we reckon that ETs probably don't even exist, and even if they did, they couldn't even get here. Well, they did a study, 1997, I can't remember now. Bernard Heishi and is it Peter Starrett? I think it might. Anyway, they're from different universities and so on, and different fields of speciality. Bernard Heishi is a astronomer, astrobiologist, and all this kind of stuff. And Peter Starrett, I think, is a physicist. And you had Russell Targ and Hal Puthoff that are kind of like physicists, laser scientists. They invented stuff for NASA and so on. So these are top spec people. They did a study together. And they said, based on the latest research, the latest theory, the latest understanding and discoveries, the possibility of extraterrestrials existing in our universe, and by the way, it's 550 billion galaxies in the observable universe, which is more, far, far, far more than all the grains of sand on this planet. The odds of that are very high. They start to discover planets, and you know what it's like. Someone starts to see it, and then everyone can see it. Well, now they're finding planets like something, like I find it hard to believe, like every few minutes, finding another planet and giving it a name. We're somewhere on, I don't know where we are now, but we're getting into like, I don't know, I just heard the latest figures on how many planets we discovered, but it's a few thousand at least. I don't know what it is. Last I heard it was about 1,500, but I'm sure it's about probably getting on 3,000 or so now, could be more. They're discovering planets everywhere. And they were saying, well, for there to be life on those planets, they would have to have moons, etc., etc. Well, now they're finding the moons. Oh, they have to be in the right place to the planet to have life. They're finding them at the right place next to the planet. And you've still got people saying, nah, they don't exist. Can't exist. And you've still got some religious people that say, oh, no, they can't exist. Even if science says they do, they can't. Even if they land and come down, they can't exist. Why? Well, the Pope and that, they want to baptize them if they do turn up. But a lot of people just say, no, it's just human beings on that little ball floating in space, and that's that. No one else, just us. Fair enough. I can live with that. But I'd rather know what the truth is. The possibility of life in space is now considered to be not very unlikely, but now considered to be very likely. In fact, I think most scientists now would be very surprised if there wasn't any life out there, including intelligent life forms. He's a scientist, astronomer. No, he's not an astronomer. I think he's a scientist. But he does like a lot of TV programs. And they did one about life in space. And he said, why haven't we found any life in the galaxy? And he basically said, near the end, we haven't found any life in the galaxy. And everyone went crazy. He said, you can't say that. You're a scientist. And you're saying there's no life? That's ridiculous. What's going on? BBC, this is crazy. His second name is Cox, C-O-X. Sorry? Brian Cox, that's it. No jokes. Brian Cox, and of course they did crack that joke quite umpteen times when he said, there's no life in the galaxy, but what he actually meant was life in this galaxy. Now, I disagree with that. I think there is life in this galaxy as well. Sorry. There's us. Currently alive. There is that one. Yeah, but he was kind of suggesting that it would be very rare, so yeah. But also about these kind of robotic things that should have been sent here. If there were other cultures that died off, they would have sent kind of like left something behind, like these kind of robots would plant their DNA on someone else's planet and this kind of stuff. But these things are theoretical anyway. We don't actually know whether there are these machines that are going to come and put their DNA into the soil or whatever. We don't actually know that. So you can't say based on that, not seeing the robots that were predicted, therefore they can't be out there. But they might be in that galaxy over there. But anyway, what he really said was, it was a misquote. People got the wrong end of the stick. Yeah, that it was, maybe in this galaxy there ain't any life. But he forgot to say, but there's going to be life in other galaxies. And that's where everyone went, oh my God, he said there's no life in space. But anyway, so that just goes to show, public opinion, what happens if you say ET doesn't exist? Like, it's definitely gone the other way. I mean, we had the military make up the term little green men just so people can go laugh with each other. I didn't know why that's funny. Why is it funny that they're green? Yeah, how would I know? Like, why not grey? So, where were we? Yeah. So, like I said, I believe that there are these paths of least resistance. These are like wormholes. And then I was chatting to someone on the phone, a UFO researcher, and I was describing some experiences. I was describing these experiences I described to you about meditation, the practice I did as a child. And over the years, a lot of people said, why did you start meditating at that age? Did you see someone else? Did you see something on TV? I can't remember anything that caused me to do it. Although, and I know it's a fact that this was before I met this little Indian boy, but later I did have a friend at school that was Indian, and he did cross his legs one day like that. And obviously I must have at some point seen or had some concept of meditation. And I thought, I'll cross my legs as well. So I did that, and then so just staring at the ground turned into cross-legged staring at the ground. And what was interesting was I went to his house one day and met his mum and his sister and his dad and his family. And I noticed his mum had something just here, this little sparkly thing. And I said, oh, whoa, what's that? It's like, oh, it's called a bindi. Oh, right, cool, bindi. Of course, they got me wondering, do they know about this thing, whatever it is? Because what I noticed was I had to put my eyes in a certain place, and then it would just click. There's something there. So I'm on the phone to this lady talking about meditation and UFO experiences, and a penny drops again. About I had experience sat in my living room where it was like water. The ceiling started to ripple, and something just started to come, felt like it was coming down through the ceiling. I was like, what's going on? And I realized that what actually was going on was by connecting, you create these paths of least resistance. Everything is connected, but some things are more connected than others. It's like water. It's like a river. Rivers flow, it has this kind of natural flow. Just like in our body, we have our veins. And if you believe in the subtle body, we have meridians, like energy lines. So these are going through the Earth as well, the grids of the Earth, and into space. And I also believe that there's like a grid structure that we all individually create. And again, I don't understand the dynamics of this, but it's almost like it can create its own, like in a fifth dimension. Like it's the, say the connections that we might have as individuals, you could almost map them, and you might see them from another dimension. They would look like a form within themselves. So it's like everything is kind of multi-layered, and you could kind of, it's like having a microscope. You can go down, well, you can go down all the way down, yeah, through your own body, all the way down to molecular level, subatomic level, yeah, quarks, and all the way down into like just, I don't know how far it goes. They're looking for the God particle, right? Or the super God particle and the super, super, super God particle. Anyway, you can keep going all the way down, but you can go all the way up as well. This actually is the evolutionary tree. So I do need to drink. So I'm talking to her, and I was like, wait a minute, these kind of tube things, they are like wormholes. And I've made these connections to elsewhere. And I knew that this was definitely connected with the beings, what I call the star people. And I was once told, oh, maybe you were a Buddhist monk, because I went to this Buddhist monastery place, and I started to talk to them, and one of their practices I kind of recognized or seemed to understand it or something. And it was similar to some things that I was doing, and they're like, well, maybe you did that in a previous life. I'm like, maybe, but I don't know. For many years, I entertained that idea that, oh, maybe I was a Buddhist monk in a past life. That explains why I meditated. Well, although I do not discount these kind of theories, in my case, in my life, it started to make much more sense when the penny dropped and I started to entertain a notion which kind of seemed a bit bizarre, but at the same time obvious, but I hadn't really accepted, that actually I had teachers kind of thing. So I meet this guy called Dr. Joseph Burks, who worked with CSETI. Has anyone heard of CSETI? For anyone that hasn't, it's the Center for the Study of Extraterrestrial Intelligence, not to be confused with SETI, which are the people that send signals, or sorry, try to pick up signals from outer space. Okay? Two different organizations, and Dr. Stephen Greer set up CSETI, and his mission is to make contact with the ETs. That's basically it. Okay? And so Dr. Joseph Burks worked with Dr. Greer and CSETI many, many years ago, and he ran one of their working groups out in the States. And he, like Dr. Greer, is a medical doctor. Lovely guy. I haven't physically met him yet. Met him on the astral realm, but I'm only joking. No, actually, I spoke to him a lot on Skype. I use Skype. I just couldn't be bothered doing all that weird stuff anymore, so I just used Skype this time. Because what happened in it was 2012, wasn't it? It started in 2012. Like I said at the beginning, it's an on-off relationship with the whole ET thing. I got myself embroiled in all sorts when I was younger, okay? And I did start to use the word abductee, or it was used about me. And I did start to believe that, you know, oh my God, these ETs, you know, they are invading our planet and they could be evil and all this kind of stuff. We read books and watch films about they're going to take over the planet. And when I watch X-Files, oh my God, give me nightmares. One particular scene in X-Files was actually like one of my experiences, and literally it was terrifying. So there was all this confusion when I was younger. And then I meet, something started to change. I had this idea one day, not an idea, it was just like a floating kind of intuitive kind of possibility thought of, what if I've just got it all wrong? It was like a what if? What if? Like, what if there's a reality like beyond the one that I seem to be just kind of spinning around in? Like, what if I don't actually know as much as I think I know? What if I could let go of knowing or thinking. So I had this, I was on a group, it's called the CE5 Initiative. It's a Facebook group, and I'd been on it for ages. And I'd see messages, read little bits, but I wouldn't really get that involved. It would just be there, like, kind of in my peripheral vision almost. And then one day, I go on there, and I start to mention an experience that I thought even the people in this group might think is a bit nuts, you know? So they're mostly talking about, you know, calling in, contacting these beings in meditation, then a light appears in the sky. And I'm like, okay, so I share something online. I guess because it was relevant in a particular discussion, so I shared it. And I didn't get a bad reception, but then I was very surprised that this guy contacted me called Dr. Joseph Burks. And he wanted to talk to me. And like I said, we got on Skype and we started to talk. And it was quite funny because it was almost like, felt like I was being interviewed. I think his medical background started to show. I felt like I was being like I was being analysed, kind of like someone's like, yeah, gone for a checkup. And so he's asking me all these questions. And I'm like, okay, where's this going? And then he suggested something that was really kind of like, whoa, but not so whoa, because I did already think this. I think I mentioned earlier, didn't I, to that lady on the phone. That he said, well, if you look into it, a lot of the people that make contact with ETs, they started meditating when they were really young. And I was like, I knew it. You little fuckers. I do believe, in the end, I had to agree with him that the ETs had actually encouraged me to meditate when I was a little boy. And maybe more specifically, this thing about the wormholes and so on, that it was almost like they were giving me some kind of head start and showing me how I could get in touch with them and how to keep that link, how to create these flows, this pathways, and how to make contact with them. So anyway, talking to Dr. Burks was really awesome, and I had another experience. Was a friend of that stayed over. She went to Ireland. She originally from Ireland, and she went back there. But she came back, and she stayed at ours at the time. And one day, I won't go into the whole experience, but there was this white moth on the wall, big white moth. When she turned up, I'm like. And at one point I walked past the white moth and I almost felt like I just wanted to meditate. It was just so, there was just exuding this calm, peaceful energy. Bizarre, I don't know if I'm imagining this, but it was really, really strong. I didn't stop and meditate with it. Well, kind of just walking past, like, yeah, but it was there, and what was really bizarre was it was there for a long time. I mean, shamanism is pretty far out if anyone knows anything about shamanism. I can see from the group here that I'm probably not going to freak too many people out tonight, which is really good. I could have kept this really clean, and but we just really gone for it, you know. I might as well scare off the scaredy cat straight away. So anyway, so she said, well, you know, like shamanism, you know, all these strange kind of initiation processes. Getting buried in the ground, which they did do in Ireland, by the way. And apparently all the Irish were up for it. Oh yeah, we're up for it. And they sort of dig in this. Yeah, jump in, stay overnight, and we'll let you out in the morning. No, I thought I've gone through some weird stuff, but anyway. I think they might even paid for that, I'm not sure. One of her initiations was to go out into a forest and to literally just, you know, sit there out in a forest for a few nights in pitch black. You're not allowed to have a candle or nothing. And it was about facing your fear of the dark. It did sound quite scary. So she went through these kind of things, and she said to me about going out into the forest, sitting in the dark. She said, Jamie, she said, I'm scared of facing my demons. Does she mean that literally or metaphorically? I said, don't worry. I said, that white moth that's been on the wall for 3 days. She said, yeah. I said, it's a demon protector. It munches demons professionally for a living. Really? She said, yeah. I said, because it appeared like back in, what was the year it appeared? Is it 20? Oh God, that's back in 2005. So it appeared back in 2005, I said, during one of my kind of weird experiences facing my own inner demons. And it turned up after the shaman sorted me out, yeah? I had a feeling James was going to turn up. Here he is. Shaman was going to sort me out, yeah? And guess what? This white moth comes into the room just at the point where I'm freed, lands there in the middle of the circle, right in the middle where the candle is, right in the middle, you know, this big room, which was used as a shamanic ceremonial space by lots of shamans. White moth comes in, whoosh, lands right in the middle and just sits there all the way through, just like the one on the wall, didn't move the whole time. And he said, that is a blessing. And I used to call him, because of that, I used to call him White Moth. So she's like, oh, cool. I don't know if she believed me, but anyway. But it was at that time that I also had a book. It's by Dr. John Mack. I don't know if everyone's heard of Dr. John Mack. Cool. He was a Harvard professor of psychiatry. His original book was called Alien Abduction, I think it was. Of course, the title sounds a bit scary, but if you read his stuff and look at Dr. Mack's work, he took a kind of quite a philosophical angle about a lot of these experiences. And his second book was called Passport to the Cosmos. Of course, I left it on the shelf for many, many years, thinking one day, I might actually take it and try and get on board the spaceship with it. No, you don't accept that? Okay, fair enough. And Passport to the Cosmos, I'm looking through it, I'm going, wow, it mentions shamans a lot, doesn't it? It's all about shamans. I thought, my friend is into shamanism. If I've ever met a proper shaman, it would be her. And, you know, funny coincidence that. And there was another book that had a kind of shamanic angle. I'm trying to remember her name now. Anyway, it's called UFOs and the Psychic Factor. And I'm reading the book. There's this woman that's had contact, by the way, with beings, ETs. And reading the book, and there's always incredible kind of shamanic-looking pictures, and they all represent different stages of the journey that what she calls the neophyte goes through. I open the book randomly on a page and go, and it says at some point there will be a moment of clarity where everything just seems different and becomes clear. All of the confusion and fear and so on will dissipate, and you will see with clear eyes, like a kind of awakening. I'm like, I didn't believe it. I thought, nah, that's not going to happen to me. Not around this subject, anyway. I'm just going to push the UFO thing out, into the closet again and just ignore it. And I might bring it back out later and kind of, and then chuck it back in. But anyway, so that book's there, and I put it away, and okay. But then I get a message from a friend, and he says, Jamie, would you like to go on a CE5 with me? Now that's bizarre, because I've just started looking at this subject again. Yeah. And so I got confused there on the timing, but it was just after this that Dr. Burks turns up, by the way, and we had the Skype call. So all of a sudden, I'm being pushed back into the whole UFO thing. But this time, not like last time. I'll skip back now to when I was 15 years old, in 1995. I met a woman, Maria Ward, that was a contactee, and she was like the second person by then that I'd met that had experiences like on the level that I'd had. And I went to visit her in London. I was blown away, you know. Like me, I didn't have any photographs around. I was terrible at trying to capture any footage. And by the way, they are very difficult to get film and photographs of. They're very sneaky. I don't know if anyone knows this. It did appear in Steven Spielberg's Close Encounters of the Third Kind, where the truck's there and then the engine goes right at the rail, by the rail track. That kind of thing. I'm frightening everyone now by the rail track. That sounds really scary. But that kind of event where the engine goes in a car is not uncommon when there's a UFO around. They do have effects upon electromagnetic electrics and so on. And it does appear to be that they can do that on purpose. It's not random. Sometimes it might be, but they could also say, right, that camera, we're switching it off. You know? Sorry, where was I? So, so he said, you want to come on this UFO, the CE5? I'm like, okay, here we go again. And I go to the CE5, and it was quite an awesome experience. Yes, there were some phenomena. I did see a UFO. I did see something I could not explain. Me with someone, two of us, we were in a circle, and so not everyone got to see it. I found the second night that the group didn't go back out. I was really disappointed because I had these dreams where one of the, I call my guide, he's an extraterrestrial, was actually telling me what was going to happen. Well, we didn't get to see it, did we? The night before, we got lost, and they were just lightweights. And didn't go out the second night, wanted to go to bed early after dinner, and we came out of the pub, walking out to the car park, and a light appears up by the tree. And I'm like, we've got to go out, you know, look. Didn't go out, everyone's too tired. We get to, what is it, the burial mound in Wiltshire. Oh, opposite Silbury Hill. There's a burial mound opposite. We get there, no word of a lie. I meet this old couple and have a conversation, right? We've just seen a crop circle. There was one that we didn't get to see. It was a couple of fields out. It looked like it was about 40, 50 foot long. But there was a tiny little one right on the edge of the field that I was very impressed by. It was only about this big, about that big, yeah? It's very small. And the spirals were very thin. Now, I can't see how any human can do that with a piece of wood, stomping with a bit of rope, or even with your foot. You'd have to get a mouse in there to make that kind of intricate design. Crazy. Anyway, so I bump into this old couple there, you know, and they say, oh yeah, last night we were up on top of Silbury Hill. Yeah, and we saw, what first of all we thought was a plane. This golden white light appears and goes around Silbury Hill and shoots a beam down, and then it goes. Oh, night previously, when I was up there, me and that lady, we both saw a golden white object over Silbury Hill. Anyway, in more ways than one, my intuitions were confirmed, because in the dream with my guide, I was taken back to a childhood memory, and the field I was taken to was where crop circles appeared over in Bristol. So I knew that everything that happened that day afterwards was the extraterrestrials had precognitively shown that to me and said, look, this is going to happen. But hey, you didn't get to actually witness it physically, but we showed you it in the dream. So that experience of going out with these people was really awesome. It kind of got me back into it, but I felt like this isn't enough. And when we were driving back home, I was like, I'm really serious about this. This is awesome. I could be doing this 24/7, like a full-time leisure, active pursuit. So it already dawned on me, I need to find another group, or I need to start doing this stuff myself. So going back to when I was in 1995, when I was 15, Maria Ward was with the CSETI group in southern England, and she was out there having experiences that I think all of us in here might find unbelievable, myself included. And one of the well-known experiences is that I think it was Alton Barnes, there's a group out there, they're Dr. Greer and his group, they're getting trouble, they're being like, apparently had a lot of like spies and stuff, or security problems in the early days. They had to employ bouncers to keep them out. And they thought at the time, I think that they were being, it might be military or something, was trying to keep tabs on them. And it started to randomly start to rain really heavily, but in a small area. And this rain was not predicted, by the way. It was like either BBC Weather just totally got it wrong, or this was kind of freak weather. And what happened was a giant craft flying saucer appears. It comes down very low, but only in the rain, so they can see it. And the theory that Dr. Greer has, and it's happened multiple times, I've experienced it too, is that they can actually generate weather patterns, like thick fog, so that you can have an experience in an enclosed area, but people around it ain't getting to see anything. Anyway, Maria Ward was there, with Dr. Greer getting involved in that kind of level of phenomena. And she showed me all her photographs and videos when I met her in London. And she also taught me the CSETI protocols. These are the protocols that Dr. Greer has been sharing with people, and now thousands of people around the world do the same protocols. Each group and each individual will do things in their own unique way and do things differently, but there's a kind of bread and butter in how we operate. So it kind of helps to focus our energies and kind of connect with everyone else that's doing this stuff. If I come back to the thing I talked earlier about the paths of least resistance, if I can make a mental connection, say, with someone, they know from with astral travel, if you want to get out of your body, by the way, has anyone ever tried this? Ever tried to get out of your own body? Yeah? Yeah, well, there's a few people. Cool. I'll meet you on the other side. Well, it's quite easy to get out. Then what? It actually gets progressively, exponentially more difficult once you get out, to actually go anywhere. Then it becomes very challenging. Well, one of the best methods I found to actually be able to travel somewhere at will is to have a series of links. One experiment I tried was, for example, say, so I'm gonna get out of my body, I'm gonna think of the plant over here, then there's a picture out in the hallway, and there's this thing out in the garden, and then there's the moon. And then I jump off the moon, and then it's like, whoosh. So if you have a series of links, your consciousness your subjective consciousness can say, oh, right, okay, I connect with this, that, and that. A bit like a map. Otherwise, if you come out of your body, you just kind of, and I experienced it, just kind of like, it's like in the film Ghost, where he's trying to pick stuff up and it's not working and he can't operate. It's like that. And I've come out of my body, and it's like being in a crazy helicopter, it's just flying around and bumping into walls, and it's like, what's the point? You've got to have an objective, you've got to have a mission. And this isn't unique to astral travel. This is true of pretty much everything in life. The more specific we are about where we're going, what we want, what we're doing, etc., etc. Only 1% of people set goals. But we know that if you set a very clear goal, that you're about between 50. But we know from MRI scans with the brain, for example, I know this from learning hypnotherapy, this is based in modern neuroscience, that if you set a goal and it's very specific, you'll light up the front of the brain, the logical prefrontal cortex, which is the boss part of the brain. This is the part which gets results, creates action. And when this is activated with a clear signal, it can also communicate to the secretarial part of the brain, which, for example, can communicate to other parts of the brain to achieve objectives, such as, in the case of smoking cigarettes, the secretary can tell the reptilian part of the brain, the fight or flight, when it sends signals through, give me a cigarette. No, sorry, it's been decided, we're not interested. So 24 hours later, the person finds, wow, I didn't think about a cigarette. Next minute, they're a non-smoker, because the chemical aspect of smoking in the body is already worn out after 24 hours. So specificity in the brain can achieve a lot, and I believe that's what happens with astral travel. And the same thing is also true of contacting ETs. For example, one of the techniques that I've tended to use a lot with great success is not just doing the meditating and then sending out a signal out to the ETs, but to also remember all the times that you've experienced contact. So you're kind of just going through all the memories, and then like future pacing into what kind of experience I would like to have next. And this is where it gets a bit, no, you're joking. Yeah.
Like Total Recall.
Maybe, I don't know. For example, I've done this, like I said, I've done this before, but I was reminded it by another contact worker, and I thought, yeah, let's try it. So I was out, and I'd imagined that I wanted to see an amber disc-shaped craft, and it just floated along like this and then disappeared. Well, I think it was more in front of me that I imagined it. But in reality, when I was out there, what happened was I noticed a light over here, looked round, and there were some trees like this, and this disc-shaped amber craft just floats left to right and then disappears, just as I imagined it. So it's like by putting out what you want to experience, it seems to be you might even get more results by being super specific, rather than, well, you know, I'd be happy just to like see a little flash, maybe a little dot in the sky. Anyway, so I got back into all this contact business, and we started to go out with groups of people, and I was with a group called Cosmic and Conscious Truths, these guys that are in London that I'd met. I will show you a piece of their footage in a moment up on the screen. And I was quite impressed, actually, with what I saw, because this was a group of guys that went out. Where's my phone? Modern technology. Like I said, this is just like a facsimile of telepathy, these mobile phone gizmos. But there's actually an app you can put on your phone now from CSETI, yeah, Dr. Stephen Greer's organisation. And this app literally gives you just gives you how to make contact with ETs on your phone. It's very simple. And this is what these guys did out in Wiltshire. They literally got the app on their phone. They went out, and they said that their first experience was a pyramid-shaped craft, massive, flew towards them and hovered in front of them, came towards the ground, and they thought it was going to land. That's our first experience? 2 guys out in the field? You know? So I see their footage, and it's not like that great big spaceship. Because the thing is, this is a deep subject. The likelihood of us going out in the field, let's just say all of us lot went out tomorrow night. Yeah. And the likelihood of a great big craft coming down, we all jump on board and we get video footage and everything, and we come back with big smiles and like lucky bags and all sorts, is pretty much zilch. I'm sorry. It is. It's very low. Very low. But just coming to the footage part, if we had that kind of footage, yeah, that kind of smoking gun stuff, right, we probably wouldn't be alive afterwards to talk about it anyway. Because the controllers, whatever you call them, the elite, the people that run the show, they won't allow you to have that kind of level of evidence. Even if you're just going to keep it for posterity, you know. Like my friend, show these photographs in her. It's like a normal, like a family photo album. There's a couple of pictures there. Oh, it was me when I was 6 years old. Next minute, oh! Yeah, you know, you can keep it yourself, but hey, you wouldn't be able to share it in public. That's just how it is at the moment. Yeah, so you can get it on your phone. Yeah. Literally, it's there. It's just a few quid. You can download it, and you could be going out tonight, and you could be making contact yourself. No word of a lie. That's what these guys did, right? So I see their footage, and I'm like, okay, it's not smoking gun, but I know these guys are genuine. So I went out with them, and we had experiences. I was out one night with our first group. We had a group. It's complicated. Getting a group and keeping them together and all this kind of stuff does get complicated. You can end up with multiple groups and all sorts. And then sometimes all the groups come together now and again for a big party. But we had experiences. Yeah, we saw lights. There was even an experience where me and other members of the group, there seemed to be certain members of the group that were very intuitive, and in meditation we would see literally the same thing in meditation, describe it exactly the same way. And one of the things that we saw, me and this lady, was a being that came to us, and an extraterrestrial. And then there was an experience I had of, we went out, this is in Wiltshire, and we meditate. Freezing cold it was. Sorry, it was late, it was dark, it was cold. We're high up, freezing cold, and I'm basically meditating, and I noticed this kind of blue light in my meditation, certain shade of light. And I knew there was something unusual about it. And it went. And I thought, but what if I could just bring it back by memory? So I did. I remembered what it felt like, and it started to get brighter and started occupying my field of vision. Next minute, this blue light is going into like a white and then a golden white light. And these beings appear. And at the point when the beings appear, the group gets really excited, like, wow, there's like this. And they're all like busy looking up the sky, like jumping up and down, like it's Christmas, because something flew over. And I'm literally there with these beings. And they were in this light. And they had biggish, not massive eyes, they had kind of big eyes, like about that big, kind of blue. And their skin looked like it was just white, like it was, I wasn't sure if it was glowing in the light or something. And they were very slender. And one of the beings, he came towards me and put his hands like this. And I put my hands against his hands like this. And as they touched, there was a feeling of electricity and feeling going up my spine. And it was just like, zzz, just electrical feeling. And a golden light came from its third eye and went through my third eye. And I'm like, I figured that one out by now, boys. But anyway, that was an experience I had. And then the night following, it happened all over again. And this time, when it happened, I heard to my right, one of the people in the group was said, oh, are you seeing that? To someone else, this side of me. And I'm kind of locked in with this connection with these beings again, this kind of telepathic connection. I don't want to open my eyes. Previous night I didn't. I was so deep in it. My breathing was so deep. I was in this very, like when I was a child, when I would meditate, my breathing would just become really slow, like it would go on forever and then go back in forever. And body switched off, you know, just out there. And so I didn't want to come out of this, but I wondered, I guess. And the light again was golden. And I opened my eyes. And as I look over towards the horizon, there is what looks like an amber light on the horizon. In fact, there was more than one, and they were kind of just going up and down like this. And bizarre, this is even more bizarre than that. For me, that was the most obvious thing we'd seen, and it correlated with the subjective, or subjective, right? And there's intersubjective, that's where two people communicate a subjective experience, but they're sharing it. But then we say, well, subjective. Just because I'm not seeing it physically like that doesn't mean it's not objective. Like, we can objectify what appears to be a subjective experience. In other words, we share our experiences that are on the eyes closed level, and we find that they correlate. So there's this correlation as well with this thing in the sky. I mean, it almost looked the same color as what I saw with my eyes closed. Like, wait a minute, what's going on here? I felt that there was this correlation, and for about a year, I was like, why didn't anyone take that so seriously? It was almost like it was forgotten about. That was the most obvious thing that we saw. Well, we're actually in a new group, like a year later, again in a similar location, and we had 5 days of CE5. It was nuts, of yoga, meditation, and chanting, and all sorts for like 5 days, camped out. And we had a lot of phenomena on the second to last day that was witnessed by, it was about 11 of us. And then the last day, we had a group photograph taken, and we turn around and these objects appear on the horizon. It's not dark, the sun's gone down, it's still light enough to see quite clearly. There are these disc-shaped objects over the horizon. One appears, then two. No one wants to film it at a certain point. And I said, you know, I've been waiting for a while for this. We saw this, I said, last year, and no one seemed to think it was important. And yet it was the most obvious thing we saw. They're back. I just call them the amber ones. I said, the amber ones are back. And then I said this statement. I said, in fact, to me, that looks just like the objects that Dr. Greer filmed at Vero Beach. And as I said that, one appears on the side of the first one, like this, just winks on, and they both intensify to a certain point where they seem to mimic these two objects that Dr. Greer had filmed in Florida. They were just like this, these two amber lights. He had a special kind of thing on the camera so it could see in the dark. Whereas if you saw the normal footage, it would be these two amber lights in the dark. But the footage that was released, it looks like sunset. So it looked, in that sense as well, just like what we saw in the UK. And I'm like, oh my God, they've just responded to what I just said, have they? But it was enough that one of the guys in our group looked around at me and he just went, and everybody started getting their phones and started filming what was going on. And then they just carried on, and it was almost like a dance. We had one light, then two, one would go off, and then that would go off, this would come on, and then it was like two, and then it was like three. And it was just like this dance going on, these lights. Now I'm going to tell you one interesting thing from this, which blew my mind. The morning before I left, I think it was the Wednesday? I think it was the Wednesday. I was staying at a friend's house, and I was told by this person that they had a dream. They saw this amber light, they got their mobile phone, started to film it, and they pressed on their phone to zoom in. They zoomed in, and what they saw was actually 3 lights. They were this shape, ellipsoid, or this shape, whatever you want to call it, and they were stacked up on top of each other, 1, 2, and 3, lip to lip. Right? And the word they used was vimanas. He said it looked like vimanas I've been reading about. All right, so these 3 disc-shaped lights inside the sphere. Right, hold that one. Because when we were at this CE5, we agreed on the first day. I said, look, we need to get more focused with what we're doing. Let's agree upon a signal that we can send to the ETs, and we'll know that it's them when they give the signal back. And I was thinking of the signal I used to use back in 1995 when I was 15. Can anyone guess what it was? The signal was a triangle, which also includes associations like the number 3, or 3 points making a triangle. Right? And so what happened was, one of the guys said, well, he said, I don't know, blue triangle? And I'm like, did you read my mind? And the other person that was with us, he just said, I don't mind, I'm up for that. So somehow we ended up with that symbol. And this is what we did for 5 days. We're in meditation, and we send up this signal. And we imagine that the ETs see this triangle, and they follow it all the way back down to Earth. And we're basically saying to them, yeah, please show us that symbol in your communications so we know it's you. Well, the final meditation before these UFOs appeared, these objects appeared, we had the most incredible hour-long meditation, which felt to me like about a whole day. Most people in the group said it felt like 2-3 hours. They were in some kind of trance. We were chanting. We had some drumming, and we were using kind of special meditation CDs on headphones. We had this incredible session, and this is what happened. It's really bizarre. Please. Basically, nearest the end, I open my eyes, and these bubbles appear over the top of the circle and hover over right in the middle. And they were literally 3 bubbles. And these 3 bubbles were actually intersecting each other to form a perfect trifecta. If you know what a Vesica Pisces is, like 2 circles, spheres that, these were like this, right? There were 3 bubbles intersected, hovering over the top of our circle like that, in broad daylight. And then they just floated off. Now, I'm not saying, because I told this to people, and they said, did anyone else see it? Do you think they were real? Did you get a photograph? Well, yeah, that's a good point. A photograph of that would have been quite amazing, actually. But my point is, I am not maintaining that these were some paranormal phenomena as such. They were 3 bubbles. They were bubbles. We were on a campsite. Someone had blown bubbles. And miraculously, these 3 bubbles had come together and hovered over our circle. The same group that were sending a signal to outer space of you know what. And then we had 3 Hell's Angels turn up. And they sat there and just watched us. Like, what the hell are these guys doing? And I knew. When I came out of that meditation, it was so deep, and I felt connected with these beings. It was like we appeared on their radar, and they were like, woo! These guys are really kicking off some some heat or something. We're going to have to go and check this out. Sorry, guys. I know it's quite a far way to travel, but yeah, we have really done a lot. You know, hello, come get us. So anyway, we go up to the top of the hill. Bam, they appeared. And I really do believe that they had returned our signal. And I have witnessed this multiple times, and other people have witnessed this kind of thing too. So in a nutshell, yeah, it's not so crazy that ET exists, yeah. The truth is more like the film ET. Close Encounters of the Third Kind, Dr. J. Allen Hynek and, was the Rush? He's French. Dr. Jacques Vallée, who was a computer scientist, and he's a ufologist. And these are two big guys in the field. Vallée is still around, but Dr. Hynek died. He was originally a skeptic, Dr. Hynek, with the Air Force, and then he realized that they were literally just conditioning people to not believe and to take the mick out of the subject and to cover it up. And anyway, so in Close Encounters of the Third Kind, there's a walk-on scene, like a Alfred Hitchcock walk-on scene, where Dr. Vallée, the French scientist, is there, and Dr. Hynek comes out with a pipe. And they're like, whoa, the spaceship comes down, and do, 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 and they're communicating with this craft. Funny enough, using light and sound. And if you watch Close Encounters of the Third Kind, there are moments where there seems to be a suggestion there's a kind of a telepathic contact, yeah, with these beings. Well, in CE5, we use light, sound, and telepathy. And the basic bread and butter is non-local mind or consciousness, which we achieve through, various means, chanting, meditation, just pure awareness. Now, why I say E.T. is one of the most accurate films is because, maybe not the way he looks, whatever, I don't know, but because in E.T., the bit where he's getting drunk and he's like, burp, and Elliot's getting drunk, and then the thing about, I say he kisses the frog. No, there's the frogs, and then he kisses the girl up on the, he stands on that boy on his, that's it. Kisses, right. So all that stuff happens in E.T. Well, I started to use a word I just use the word resonance. That one of the main aspects of contact work, it's not just about seeing something in the sky. Even if you are not aware of it or don't believe it's possible for you, you're just at the point where I want to see something, that's cool. Well, I don't think I can speak to these guys, not unless they get on the phone, on the internet, Skype, or land and have a conversation with me. But the main aspect is telepathy, is a heart-to-heart communication, which I also believe is a resonance of consciousness. And when there's this resonance, it's just like in music, vibration, parasympathetic resonance. There's actually an exchange of energy, which is an exchange of, this is where it gets really deep. I think this is the kind of what do we call it? This is the gnosis of contact. Yeah? You can just go to church and sing happy clappy songs and stuff. Yeah? Or you get really deep and you realize that that's who I am, And so, E.T. I believe is most accurate because that connection, that relationship that Elliot has with E.T., there's a bond. And it's because of that. And the bit where his heart lights up, and you might have seen this in a few movies, like where E.T. touches you there, and then there's a comedy, I haven't seen it, but I have read this, it's called Paul, I think, with a grey-like being, and he touches him here, and he has like a oneness experience. But first of all, he goes down a tunnel of light. Which is basically what the ETs were doing with me. I told you the whole story. Yeah. And then ET says, I'll be right here. So, that's why I think ET is actually one of the most accurate movies we have on the contact experience. rather than all of these 90% of stuff being churned out by Hollywood and the media saying that ETs are trying to invade the planet. We've really got to move beyond that kind of mindset, because it's some people say, well, what's the point of them? We don't need them anyway. Like, we need to just get rid of the Illuminati and sort all this out. We don't need your pesky ETs. They're a distraction. They're not a distraction. It's the way we think about this. The way we approach it is the distraction. Are you distracting in your approach? I'm seeking to understand and focus and find out what this is truly about, not distract myself with these kind of, you know, all this kind of fantasy stuff. Yeah, so I'm pretty much going to leave it there, I think. But, I mean, any questions? I haven't noticed I've just carried on rather than having the break that I promised. So we've only got a few minutes, so I might show you a little bit of footage. We'd have to put the lights out, wouldn't we? So the first one I'll show you is the guys that from Cosmic and Conscious Truth that are in London, but we met out in Wiltshire. And this footage is taken in Wiltshire in 2014. And these are the guys I told you about, where they went out with the Dr. Greer's app, and they just went out, first time, and they had this pyramid craft appear. Like I said, you would not get that on film, maybe not that close range, because it would not be allowed. So this is at night time, so it's going to be like incredibly detailed or anything. But those lights there, okay, those lights, obviously they're just like lights on the hill in the distance. So what you'll see, there it is to the left, and it appears, and there's 4 amber lights. Like I said, this is the one that we seem to have seen a lot of, and this is the one that is kind of one that I became quite vocal about, saying this is the real thing, you know. And then they just go. So that was the piece of footage I saw that they had, and although it's not like absolutely incredible, I was like, wow, I think these guys, you know, they've actually achieved something in a very short period of time. So I'd like to go out and CE5 with them. So you show the next piece of footage. This is one that I filmed. You might get me screaming and singing and all sorts now. Maybe turn the volume down, it'd be ridiculous. So this footage is actually local, and this wasn't a CE5. I was just coming home. I was cycling through the country. It's quite dark. You won't see any streetlights or anything because it's literally facing up to a hill, top of some fields. About the object is about 500 meters away. There's actually more than one object, but the film doesn't pick them all up. There were blue, amber, and white. Wow. Wow. And they were kind of just hovering there, very dim, and every now and again they would flash like strobes or get bigger, and then they would become visible on film. This is only on a Samsung normal, it's off a camera phone, so it's not very good. There it is there. So
wow, I need a better camcorder. It just
you get all my commentary, which is worse than real life.
Before then, it moved left and then right across the sky,
and I get very excited.
Bluish colour. There it is now. Wow. Come on, guys.
And this is for 25 minutes, by the way. I was watching this for 25 minutes.
Still there, just hovering there.
And I'm singing to them as well.
Wow. Wow, I can't believe this. Wow, they're putting on a real show.
Right, that's very quick. At the end there's the light, and then this kind of streak comes off. I don't know if you can see it there, it's top right. Dan did this for me. I don't know how long this took Dan to do, because I said, can you enhance this footage a little bit? There's all sorts of stuff going on here, which you won't be able to see unless maybe it was enhanced a bit. But yeah, from the object there, this like streak on a diagonal appears. I don't remember seeing that, but like I said, there were a lot of strobe-like effects, like it was kind of flashes coming off of these objects. So that might have been one of the strobe effects that was captured on film. Is in Wiltshire, and this is when there was 11 of us. Most of the people in the group, by the way, were new to CE5. So they've never seen anything before. And they get to see this at sunset. So what you're looking at is those two lights there. The lights below are just street lights, and the horizon, should really fire this laser out there, should I have dangerous sound? The horizon is roughly about there. You probably can't see it, but the top of the hill is just about here. So these objects are kind of, they were moving slightly. Some seemed to dip behind the hill, and then it was like the sun. Like when the sun goes down, kind of see sunlight coming from the back of the hill, and then it would go out. And then there's 3 there. And obviously I'm excited again because they've made the number 3 for us. There is more of this footage. I'm afraid to say that's all I've managed to get so far. There were some issues with the film. We had one of our members was actually battling away, almost like day and night. And I said to him, look, just stop. If we're not meant to get this film footage, don't bother. Just forget about it. And yeah, they weren't getting any sleep over the matter. But their phone started making weird beeping noises. And they couldn't, it seems like they couldn't get all of the footage. But I was actually told, like I said, remember I said about the 3 lights stacked up like this, 3. Well, I have seen, but unfortunately I didn't have it here to show you, but in the footage I was shown by this person on their phone that at one point there is an appearance of these lights, and they literally are that shape, and they stack on top of each other, 1, 2, and 3 in a vertical line. They just appear like that in a vertical line, shimmer, get brighter, and then go out. And that, I truly believe, was the dream that that person had on the Wednesday morning. They dreamt of these 3, what they call vimanas, stacked up, one on top of each other. And again, spookily, the word vimana was used quite a few times at the CE5 by one particular individual that was present. They talked about vimanas and called them vimanas. So you kind of get a lot of this synchronicity